U.S. women's hockey team will play for the Olympic gold medal. Today, they won their spot in the gold medal game with a big 5-0 win over Sweden in the semifinals. In the record books, the Americans lagged behind Canada in hockey golds. Canada has won 5, the U.S. only 2. But this year looks like the Americans' year to get that tally one closer.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Luminescence Foundation. Luminescence Foundation is dedicated to shedding light on neurological research focused on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases and supporting land conservation initiatives. This is NPR.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Scott Detrow. The U.S. women's hockey team will play for the Olympic gold medal. Today, they won their spot in the gold medal game with a big 5-0 win over Sweden in the semifinals. In the record books, the Americans lagged behind Canada in hockey golds. Canada has won 5, the U.S. only 2. But this year looks like the Americans' year to get that tally one closer. Here's Becky Sullivan, was just at the game in Milan and joins me now. Hey, Becky.
Hey, Scott.
There's a lot of colorful ways to put it. This was a one-sided game. It was not even close. I mean, I was watching on TV and got excited. What was it like being there?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, this U.S. team is just a total juggernaut, Scott. It was actually pretty close for the first period and a half or so. But then toward the end of the second period, there was this just like one little stretch, just like 3 or 4 minutes of game time where the U.S. scored 3 goals, just sort of back to back to back. You had the snipe by Abby Murphy that put the Americans up 3-0. Less than a minute later, you had their other youngster, Layla Edwards, who sort of rocketed one toward the goal from the blue line and got it tipped in. Sweden actually swapped out their goalie at that point, just like this total desperation move. And then just right after the U.S. pulled off another goal, just a beautiful little pass to Haley Skamura, who knocked it in. And just this like awesome sequence again, just like 3 or 4 minutes long, took all of the air out of the building for the Swedes, and put that game totally out of reach with that final score of 5-0.
You're mentioning a lot of young players, and as we have seen over the past week, sometimes being a young athlete at the Olympics means a lot of nerves, right? It does not seem the case with this team. Is it fair to say they're bringing a youthful energy that's really helping them?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. I think this is one of the biggest stories of these Olympic Games for Team USA, this women's hockey group. They have done just an amazing job, the U.S. has, of developing these young players. You know, I asked Taylor Heisey about this after the game. She's a player on the team. She's 25, but she says playing alongside players like Layla Edwards, who's 22, Abby Murphy, who's 23, you know, they don't feel young to her because they're so experienced and so dedicated. Here's a little bit of what she had to say about that.
You would never assume they're 20, 21, 22 years old. Honored to play with them, and I think it's so fun to watch them out there, and I learned so much from them, and they keep me young at heart as well.
This team has gotten a ton of attention, but I know there's going to be some people tuning into the gold medal game who haven't watched the earlier games. You mentioned Abby Murphy, you mentioned Layla Edwards. What do people need to know about the two of them especially?
Yeah, I mean, Layla Edwards, yeah, she's 22 years old. She was sort of hyped coming into these Olympics as like the sort of big new star for the team. Last season in college, she was the leading scorer in the NCAAs for the Wisconsin Badgers. She's now 22. She's big on the ice. You'll see her. She's 6'1", which is obviously really tall for a women's hockey player. She's also the first black woman to play for Team USA in the Olympics on the hockey team, which is a historic thing that she has talked about as being super meaningful to her. She's totally lived up to these expectations that she had. She scored 2 goals so far, 5 assists. That's been awesome. I've also just personally been really delighted by Abby Murphy, the other name you mentioned. She's a 23-year-old forward. It was just super fun to watch because she's just a total pest on the ice. You can tell she's getting under the skin of her opponents. And then she's also just like a transcendent skater. She's an amazing passer. She just like makes these passes that just like, I feel like just take my breath away. It's just so fun to watch.
What else is happening at the Olympics today?
Well, you know, just in the short time we have left, I'll just shout out to Kristen Santos-Griswold, who is a speed skater, a short track speed skater, who you might remember from the 2022 games in Beijing as being a devastating story. She had gotten all the way to the final of the 1,000-meter race. She was in place for a bronze medal when a competitor sort of bumped into her, later ruled illegally, and knocked her down. She ended up losing out on the medal. And it was just really amazing to hear her talk about this and like the strength required to decide to run it back for another chance. Speed skating is just such a brutal sport, especially short track. There are so many things out of these racers' control on these super tight little courses. So today she missed her spot in the semifinals in that same event, the 1,000 meter, by just 34 milliseconds. But I just wanted to give a tip of my hat to her for the strength, the resilience that you have to find within yourself to try again after such a big setback. She does have one last race at these Olympics as part of a team relay on Wednesday, so I will be watching that.
NPR's Becky Sullivan joining us from the Olympics. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Back in December, when a social media influencer started alleging fraud in Minnesota's child care programs, Republican state lawmakers took credit for helping him. Now, after weeks of a federal immigration enforcement surge that led to 2 deaths, major disruptions, and thousands of arrests, Minnesota Democrats are blaming their Republican colleagues for the ordeal. Minnesota Public Radio's Dana Ferguson reports.